Those two streams, they look identical. But one is an
to appraise resumes for a position, and they're actually identical to each other with the exception of the gender.
Are not identical, of course, for Catholic and Protestants, but on this issue, the scripture.
So they tried to take an identical car, identical tires and everything.
Bring two dresses. You have to wear the same clothes on it. Bring two identical.
So, identical twins don't just have the same faces, they have the same bodies.
I've got a 4-year-old boy and identical twin girls who are 1.
The first 6 movies. You write, the 2 trilogies are about freedom of choice under nearly identical conditions.
Human DNA is identical across all humans. That's what gives us
group. It's almost identical even after 25 years. And this is in the mid.
We're all 99.9% identical, otherwise we wouldn't survive as a species.
What does it really matter? So there was a study done that showed that if you look at identical essays, on history or
Farming. I have made 15,000 of these, and they're all identical. It's been my life's work to
Wednesday are identical, but the syntax starts to change. So whereas last week we had
his verbatim identical. The makeup of the principles,
and so everything is identical on both sides. So it's and it was very.
One reason why identical twin girls are not as identical twin boys, because it could be a completely different.
Provide another piece of DNA that has identical to the site that we've made the break in.
Where identical sections attract and differences repel. In 3D, it's a
seem to be identical to the process that happened in relationships. So at that time,
Okay, there is virtually nothing identical about a 25-year-old woman to a 54-year-old woman. Nothing. In fact, if you're talking...
Pretty clever. They took identical twins, right? So 100% genes matched. And they...
When you have 2 identical twins, and one gets Alzheimer's, they're identical twins.
Picture was identical to this, and it was the cover of Time. But and they held not.
In other words, we start from our differences to become identical by, it's like Elvis impersonators.
Because of fungal diseases, all the banana is genetically identical, Cavendish bananas.
Mm-hmm. So it's identical to words in French, and they are so right.
Nearly identical to the pendant I showed you with the 2 lovers and death behind it.
You should think of that like identical twins. You know that they have the same genes.
So it doesn't mean that every kind of service is identical, but it can be.
This isn't an identical thing. It's not going to come out the same way, but there's.
You should think of that like identical twins. You know that they have the same genes.
Moreover, in fact, the mathematics is identical. So not only do these forces appear similar...
Despite their identical DNA, I somehow doubted that things would turn out
almost identical to the membranes of modern living cells.
Into 2 identical copies, fiber by fiber, strand by strand. And now, one last